Today we're going to talk about some ponderings of mine around when do you decide, or how do you know when is enough enough? When do you stop doing something? When is it actually becoming a waste of time and energy? When do you know to stop that project, stop that task, not do that thing anymore? Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Organise Yourself podcast and video channel, where we talk about how you can achieve more but without working the crazy hours, without being overwhelmed, and without sacrificing everything, basically. This is something that has been coming up for me many times over the years. So every time I am in a project, and especially when a project either hits a plateau or hits a bit of a dive, and this also comes up for my clients, of course. And in fact, this is a conversation that's happening at the moment with one of my clients. And, this is why I thought, I've been pondering this anyway. Let's talk about it together. And, when you're working on something and it's either kind of plateauing or it's really taking a bit of a dive and things aren't going the way you expected, the way that you had planned. And you're like, when is enough enough? When do I pull the pin on this project? And some people don't ever ask themselves that question, which is even more dangerous, right? So if you never ask yourself the question, should I be continuing with this project, then you're even more likely to be wasting time on it and money and all sorts of other resources, which will just be going to waste and could be going towards something else. And I like to think of it, there are a couple of different ways. You either run out of resources and you're not resourceful enough or don't have any other way to get more resources, and that means you've run out of people, you've run out of money, or you've run out of time because you had a deadline, right? So that obviously is a perfect way to decide, well, this has got to end. I'm about to run out of money and I have no other way to get money. And even if I got money, could I still keep making it work, or am I going to continue to plateau? Am I going to continue to dive, right? So what would be the turning point? And then there are other times when you're working on a project. It's not like you've run out of money, but maybe you've run out of puff because, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, I know, right? Especially I have a tech company as well. I know what it's like to feel like you've run out of puff. You're like, I have been working at this thing for years, and when is it going to skyrocket? Yeah. And I like to think of the story of Carmen's Kitchen. For those of you that aren't familiar with Carmen's Kitchen is a product in Australia here. They do mueslis and muesli bars and things like that. So snack foods and cereals, but really healthy, right? And I once saw Carolyn Cresswell speak. She was the founder, or is the founder, beg your pardon, of Carmen's Kitchens. And her story just stuck with me. Yeah, and I'll never forget her story because it's almost like my benchmark of have I done enough to say that this project is a failure or a success. Yeah. And a little bit of a timeline. So she bought a muesli business that she was working in 1992. Okay. A very small, she bought it for $1,000, so not big, right? And then she continued to develop it, right? So she bought it in 92. She didn't get her products, her cereals, into supermarkets, right? So if you have a physical food product, I would suspect that getting them into restaurants, supermarkets, airlines, getting them into mass market is most likely the goal eventually. That's how you will make a lot of money, right? Staying small and just going to local food markets and things like that, you're never going to become, the multi-gazillionaire. So it took her 5 years to get her cereals into supermarkets, and that was the first big milestone. 5 years is not a short amount of time. She had to grow her brand, grow her customer base, make sure that people loved it, all of that kind of stuff. And I can imagine that would have been a hard slog, 5 years hard slog. And a lot of people will have given up, right? There's a lot of statistics out there around businesses fail after the first year, first 2 years, 5 years, 10 years kind of marks. And so that would have been amazing, right? But, right, what she did when it went into the supermarkets, that's my benchmark for have I done everything humanly possible to make sure this thing can and is a success. So she would literally go around, like she watched her numbers, she knew the data, and she would go around to the supermarkets, and especially the ones that she knew maybe weren't selling a lot, or the ones that she knew her product was in, because they don't go into all the supermarkets at first. She would buy all the stock because she knew how the supermarket worked. And if the product sold, they ordered more and they kept ordering more, right? So she bought her products herself. So she kept the orders going. And then she would go into the supermarkets and restack the shelves herself to put her products into prime position. Like sneakily go in there and do it, right? She'd be like, okay, I'll go in late at night, quickly just like restack the shelves, put my product in a prime position, and it would improve her sales, right? And she would drive around to all of these supermarkets, restacking shelves, buying products, all of this stuff, because she knew that if she wanted to be successful in the supermarkets, she had to make it work, right? And it sounds a little bit sneaky, but it was genius, right? So who has the guts? How many of you would have the guts to drive around every day or every week to those supermarkets and shuffle things on the shelves? Just move your product up the shelf a little bit, like how many of you would have the guts to do that? And that's what I think about, like, what am I willing to do to make sure that this is successful? And have I done everything, pushed through all of my fears, and made sure that I have done everything possible to make sure this thing is a success? Yeah. And that to me is really the benchmark for me to know whether I have done enough to know whether this project is going to fly or not. Yeah. The next thing then, of course, is like deciding what those actions are, but then actually taking those actions, not letting it drag on and on and on, right? So you might know what those actions are, but you let that fear hold you back for months, weeks, years, right? Before you decide you've had enough and you do the scary thing, okay? So what you need to be doing is prioritizing those things that you need to do, which will prove to you whether you have done enough to know whether this project or task is a success. Okay, so if you're just continuing to just do the easy things, plodding along, doing the things that kind of need to be done, sometimes need to be done, sometimes only kind of need to be done, but aren't really gonna, make that difference, like really supercharge what you're doing or really move the dial enough for you to really know whether that's successful, then you're not spending your time on the things that you should be. You're spending on the times that are nice to have or that are easy or that are in your comfort zone. Okay, so they're not really going to help you prove whether you've done enough. Okay, and I do it, we all do it. We want to sit in our comfort zone. Who doesn't like being comfortable? I like being comfortable. But we know that we need to push ourselves outside of that to really prove to ourselves. Yeah. And so when you're kind of sitting around going, am I doing the right things? How do I know when to stop doing this thing? It's when you go, I have done enough to know that it's successful. Now, this works a couple of different ways. One is, have you gone hard enough? Have you done the hard things? Have you tried all the different things for a long enough period of time to know whether it's successful? Like the example I gave you with Carolyn, where she thought to herself, what are all the creative things I could do to make this successful, right? And she made sure she did those things, okay? And she made it successful. Success doesn't just accidentally happen. I know there are some instances where some person wore a thing on TikTok and all of a sudden it becomes a success. That's not the norm, okay? That's a rarity. That's not the norm. So you can't bank on that being the only strategy you have. You have to go, what can I do? What else have other people done? What will it take? And do those things. Schedule them in, prioritize them, spend your time on those things, okay? On the flip side, there's the other one where you go, I'm working on a task, and when do you decide you've done enough for it to be successful? Okay, so you don't go too far beyond, because we also have a problem sometimes of being perfectionists and spending way too much time on something that doesn't also move the dial to really make a difference. Okay, I know you guys all know what I'm talking about. All you perfectionist entrepreneurs and business owners and executives out there, you guys know what I'm talking about. When you're working on something, you're like, if I could just do this extra thing, it would just be just so much nicer, or it would just add a little bit of extra oomph, you know. But those things maybe is just not the best use of your time. They would be lovely, they would be great, but is that really going to move the dial for you? So that's the other thing where I want you to kind of go, gauge, am I doing too much on this thing? Is this the best use of my time? How much is it going to move the dial on helping me to move towards my goals? Yeah. So if you're like 80% of what I want to do will get me 100% towards my goals, or 100% of what I want to do will get me still 100% towards my goals, but the 20% extra that I didn't move me any further. You know what I mean? So that's really important to try and work out what that is, gauge that, and make sure that you apply that to what you do. Yeah. So we've talked about a couple of different things here, but really ultimately what it comes down to is, are you choosing to spend your time on the things and only the things that will really significantly move the dial to help you move towards your goals, right? There are so many things we could be doing, want to be doing, think we should be doing, but if we stop and take a step back and really assessed it, we would go, that's really a nice to have. That's really not going to push me that much further, and that's going to take me so much extra time. It is not the best and highest use of my time. We need to be questioning ourselves and asking ourselves that question every day, and every time we want to start something, when we're looking at our to-do list, before we choose to put something on our to-do list for the day, before we choose to undertake a task, before we say yes to anything, we want to be saying, is this moving me towards my goal in the fastest way possible? Okay? Because there are so many things that will inch you towards your goals, but not really move you in the fastest way possible. And I am guilty of this like everybody else. I am just as guilty as everyone else. But I know that I have projects that have been going for a long time, right? Sometimes a very long time. And I know that I have not done all the hard things to really know if it's successful. Yeah. And then sometimes you get to that point, like I said, where you go and you're like, I've run out of resources, and I also know I haven't done all the hard things. And that's when you need to get a little bit strategic about how you approach the next stage, right? So it might be, I can't bootstrap anymore. I need to get an investor, an angel investor. I maybe need to do a short-term piece of work, get some cash injection, put that into that project again to reignite it. You've got to be careful of the delay in the time frame there, so you make sure that works. But there are lots of different things that you could do, but the most important thing is to stop, take a step back, actually assess the situation and decide where you should be spending your time. Because if we just keep going and going and going and moving through each day and just doing the tasks and not really paying attention to them, it is very possible that we start working on things that aren't really the best use of our time and aren't pushing us fast enough towards our goals. So what we want to be doing is achieving more, but doing less. Yeah. And I know that's a really hard concept sometimes for people who are used to being busy all the time, are perfectionists, are, top of your field. And that's fine. You're top of your field for a reason, right? That doesn't mean you have to be flogging yourself every day and burning yourself out, right? You need to be smarter about it. And so I want you to think about, what are you working on right now? What projects have you got on the go? What things have you been considering? And are you thinking about, are there some that you're thinking about, should I continue with this? Is this worth it? When is enough enough? Like, everything just keeps going wrong. It doesn't work anymore. Well, have you 100% tried everything, right? Have you only partially tried something, you didn't really give it a good go, right? And can you circle back on that thing? So that's just my thoughts and ponderings, right? Because this is just something that's going on with some clients at the moment. And actually there's a particular project of my own. This has come in and out of my mind. It's been a long project that's very big. And because of the duration and the size, it sometimes gets a bit tiring, and you kind of go, oh, is this really going to work? Then on the flip side is when you're working on a task and you're possibly putting a little bit too much effort in it and it's not going to move the dial. Like 80% of that will move the dial, whereas that 20% will take up a lot of work but not really make a big difference. So I want you to consider that too. All right, if you would like to hear more of these kinds of stories and tips and hints, then please follow, share, and make sure that you visit us over at the Organise Yourself website, organiseyourself.net. That's with an S because I'm Australian. I don't spell it with a Z, so make sure you put the S in there. And why don't you check out our free productivity supercharged training. It's like in 30 minutes of training, like literally you spend 30 minutes doing this training. It's a couple of lessons, so you don't even have to do it all in one go, like a couple of, 5-10 minute lessons. And I promise you, if you implement the things in that training, you will get hours back in your day. How would you like to spend 30 minutes once and get hours and hours back every single day? Sounds amazing to me. So pop over to the organiseyourself.net website, grab yourself the free training, and let me know how you went. Can't wait to hear.